The street is quiet enough to hear sprinklers ticking, yet a convoy idles like a rumor at the end of the cul-de-sac. Men in matching tactical polos fan out, patches stitched with blocky letters that read community enforcement. They spread their palms like stop signs and tell me to get back inside my own house. No sirens, no cruisers, SUVs, uncertainty. I ask for badge numbers. Their eyes volley between one another. Then one of them flashes a silver oval the size of a cane. Another recites a code I've never heard 4-4 be like a spell. That turns private property into their stage. Neighbors drift to lawns and sidewalks. Cameras rise. Someone whispers, HOA police, and the phrase moves through the air. Bigger than the men who said it first. They move to tighten the circle. I don't step back. Calm is leverage. Panic is paperwork for other people. I tell them homeowners associations write covenants, not criminal codes. The smirk thins. Somewhere down the block, a mower coughs and falls silent. The neighborhood holding its breath with me. Last chance, the smirker says. Surrender your phone. You're interfering. The crowd gives a collective, skeptical HMM. Someone in running shoes asks for post-certification. Someone else asks which department shares their patch. The answers tangle, then trail off. I ask one more time for the case number. Silence, then bluster. Threats dressed as process. I can almost feel the video editing itself in a dozen phones. Me, the men, the patches, the promise. If you're real law enforcement, I say, letting each word find its weight. You already know who I am. A bead hangs like weather before a storm. My hand finds the leather wallet that doesn't need theatrics. Neighbors lean forward without moving. The men in polos straighten as if the pavement tilted under them. I hold their gaze, then lower mine to the wallet's seam. Whatever comes next will not be noise. It will be receipt. The neighborhood was designed to look effortless. Clipped hedges, color-matched mailboxes, sidewalks edged straight as a ruler. The HOA newsletters arrived with cheery clip art and deadlines, reminding everyone when to roll bins, how tall grass could grow, which shades of beige counted as approved. Order wasn't a suggestion here. It was decor. People liked it that way, or said they did, because liking it kept letters away. I like quiet. I like mornings where the loudest thing was a kettle and weekends that didn't require explanations. I worked in a world where details mattered and where mistakes traveled fast. So at home I kept things simple. Blinds even, porch light on a timer, records filed. I wasn't hiding. I was conserving. Privacy isn't secrecy. It's a boundary that says I am not public property. HOA letters for all their stationery and stamps aren't police. They manage covenants promises homeowners make to each other about paint, fences, fees, and common areas. They can send notices, levy fines, hire vendors, and sue in civil court. They can't detain, search, seize, or arrest. That's not a gray area. That's a bright line. So, when men wearing community enforcement patches spread across my driveway, language bent, and with it the truth. The phrase HOA police sounds tidy until you ask the first real questions. Which department? What agency ORI? What case or incident number? Who's the commissioning authority? Real officers carry answers the way they carry air. Pretenders carry volume. My neighbors didn't know that difference on paper, but they felt it in their ribs. Phones rose not because drama is addictive, but because documentation is a modern reflex. The stakes were immediate and layered. Safety, first hands, distance, posture. Dignity, close behind being addressed as a problem on my own property. The right to be left alone in a place I pay for, mow, shovel, and keep orderly. And above us, the weather of the internet, where 10 seconds cut from context can pin a name to a myth and make it travel. Bias loves a short clip. I knew the texture of escalation, tone sharpen, command stack. Someone mistakes refusal for threat, and suddenly process becomes spectacle. I also knew the architecture of process. Procedure is a map. If you know it, you don't have to run. Ask jurisdiction, ask dispatch, ask for a supervisor, and mirages break on contact. None of that made me invincible. It made me patient. Calm by seconds, and seconds by choices. The men in polos mistook my stillness for submission. Stillness was strategy. They were building a story with costumes and confidence. I had something quieter. Receipts. So I measured the scene, house lines, camera angles, feet on concrete. I counted witnesses carefully. I inventoried phrases they used and ones they avoided. I let them talk slowly. And when the circle tightened and the tallest one tested my boundary, I understood the moment was coming when words would no longer be enough. And something more official would have to speak next. I'll take your agency ORI and a case number, I say. Steady. Dispatch call sign works too. The radios click, but nothing answers back. The tallest one smirks and tells me I'm non-compliant. He gestures at my driveway as if he drew the lines himself and warns me I'm approaching detention. I look at the doorbell camera's glass eye and let the red dot reflect in mine. The man who has done most of the talking adjusts his polo like it's a uniform and names himself captain. He plants a boot on the edge of my driveway as if claiming shoreline and says, with the kind of volume that hopes to become law, that I am under HOA arrest for non-compliance and disorderly conduct. The phrase itself wobbles, a table with one leg to short. Behind him, two others widen their stance and start rehearsing authority with their hands. Secure the scene. The captain orders, pointing to my porch, my phone, my quiet. He says my device is evidence and will be seized for review at the clubhouse. A word that makes the crowd tilt their heads. A clubhouse can host meetings. It cannot hold cells. He doesn't notice the way those watching exchange looks, the way certainty shrinks when it's measured. I ask which statute authorizes detention by covenant. He answers with jargon that smells like fresh paint. Someone across the street coughs out a laugh, then swallows it. The captain pivots to fines, to suspension of amenities, to a line about community safety that reaches for gravity and grabs air. His men edge closer. The circle breathes in. I keep my hands visible and my voice plain. Detaining a resident without lawful authority approaches unlawful restraint, I say. Holding someone against their will becomes false imprisonment. I tell him impersonating law enforcement is a crime, not a costume, and that policies stitched on cotton are not jurisdiction. I'm not performing. I'm labeling the boxes they're opening. The captain decides talk is over. He flicks 2 fingers at the nearest pair. Cuff him. The command hangs there, heavier than he expected. The men hesitate, then start forward, eyes on my wrist like they've already written the report. A neighbor on the sidewalk whispers they can't do that, and the whisper spreads until it sounds like a rule. Stop, I say, not loud, just certain. Before you test that line, call dispatch and give me a case number. The radios click again and serve only their own static. The captain pretends not to hear. He repeats the order. One man reaches for a zip tie. Another steps onto the concrete seam that marks my property. Every story tips somewhere. You feel the angle change before you see it. I take one breath, count the faces, and let the pause become a hinge. Then I set the hinge. Time to ask questions that have answers, and to show receipts that don't blink. I'll start simple. Jurisdiction, ORI, dispatch call sign, supervisor, incident or case number. If they're real, answers arrive. If not, silence documents right now. Jurisdiction, I say, holding their gaze. Who commissioned you? City, county, or a private vendor with a contract number? The captain's mouth opens and closes like a door that forgot its hinges. Agency ORI, I add. Dispatch call sign? Their radios hiss the sound of an empty room. Case or incident number. I continue. So I can verify on the non-emergency line. The tallest man taps his mic, then looks at the captain as if numbers might fall out of his pocket. Static again. Go ahead, I offer. I'll wait while you call it in. I take 2 steps toward the end of my driveway and pause beside the HOA's neatly posted rules. Parking hours, trash bins, fence heights, pool badges. Neighbors have read these 100 times. Civil covenants, I say to the crowd, not to the men. Notice, fine, lien may be arbitration. No power to detain. No power to seize. The words land where they belong, on paper, not on wrist. The captain recovers with volume. He announces that the Community Enforcement Division maintains safety standards and can secure scenes pending review. Which statute? I ask. He gestures at the sign. That's a contract, I reply. A contract can't arrest anyone. Several phones pan from the sign to the men's faces. Collecting the difference between text and theater. Impersonating an officer is a felony. I say evenly. 18 U.S.C. 912 covers federal impersonation. The state analog is similar. I let the citations breathe, then translate for the block, pretending to be law enforcement. Gaining compliance through that pretense. Threatening detention, that's exposure. The runner in bright shoes murmurs. That tracks, and the line becomes a small chorus of agreement. Last check, I say. If you're claiming authority here, name your commissioning agency and your supervisor. Or clear my property. They don't move. Then we're done with talk. You're now warned. Continued presence after refusal is criminal trespass. I say it plainly. Like labeling a box before it's shipped. The neighbors don't cheer. They document. The captain tries one more trick. He asks me to step toward the sidewalk to clarify boundaries, and the men angle to funnel me off the concrete seam. I plant my heel on the expansion joint and don't budge. Boundary is here, I say. A woman to houses down repeats it for her live stream. Boundary is here. The radio's quiet as if embarrassed. Someone finally mutters a call sign that isn't a call sign. I offer my phone, screamed right with the local PD's non-emergency number cued. Say the incident number, I tell him. He watches the cursor blink and doesn't speak. Bluster thins at the edges first. Patches look more like patches. The crowd recognizes a costume when the buttons start to rattle. I don't raise my voice. I let the questions stand upright. Let the law do what it does when truth and posture collide. And point, once more, at the sign that explains everything and nothing at all. Phones are no longer discreet. They're part of the scene, held high like lanterns. A teenager starts a live stream and pins the caption, "Who are the HOA police?" Comments pour in faster than the idle engines can hum. Someone zooms on the patches. Someone else compares them to a novelty set online. The cul-de-sac becomes a focus group for reality. A man with a baseball cap and a posture that makes room for silence steps forward from the shade. Later I'll learn he's retired military, but the discipline announces itself first. Post-certification? He asks, voice even. Municipal commission? Badge roster? Who signed your authority? The captain answers with a speech about community standards and safety expectations. The man tilts his head. Paperwork, not slogans. I raise my hands to chest height so the cameras can hear as much as they see. Plain English, I say for the live stream. Homeowners associations can issue civil notices and fines. They cannot detain people, seize property, or enforce criminal law. If someone claims otherwise, ask for their agency, case number, and supervisor. If they don't have those, you're dealing with a costume, not a commission. The teenager repeats key phrases into chat. Hearts flutter up the screen. The men in polos trade glances. A woman across the street asks whether they've filed a call for service. A neighbor reads the sign aloud and laughs at its sudden smallness. For the first time, the group looks smaller than the phones recording them. The uniform of certainty loses a size. The captain recovers with command presence. He tells his team to prepare clubhouse transport, as if renaming a thing could make it legal. The phrase ricochets through the live stream and comes back as incredulity. The retired military man taps his watch. Transport to what jurisdiction? He asks. Under what statute? Silence again, then more volume. I give the crowd the action steps I'd want if I were watching at home. Stay on the sidewalk. Keep recording. If you're asked to surrender your phone, say no. If they block your path, that's detention. If they touch you without cause, that's contact you should document. People nod because simple rules feel like handrails. The captain signals two men toward my porch, eager to turn the narrative from questions to motion. Engines rumble as if on cue. I take one breath and square my shoulders to the camera nearest me, not to perform, but to make the next line travel. If they insist on taking this further, they won't like where the road leads. Because before anyone moves another inch, jurisdiction will be named, or the law will name what they are doing. Another SUV noses into the cul-de-sac, glossy and late like a headliner. The driver steps out with swagger and a smile that wants to be a badge. He says he works with the sheriff's office, letting the phrase hang where proof should be, and promises to call in real deputies for obstruction if I don't comply. The crowd parts enough to watch his confidence walk. He clocks the chalk line where my driveway meets the HOA's common strip, and tries a trick older than fresh paint. Step over here so we can talk away from the cameras, he suggests, toe-tapping the seam like a lure. If I follow, I'm on their turf. If I refuse, they'll call me uncooperative. He angles his body to block the doorbell lens and nods to the captain. Secure the phone as evidence, he orders. Two men move as if choreography equals jurisdiction. They reach for the device that has never lied, the one thing here that remembers perfectly. I hold my ground, and my voice stays level. No, he puffs. Interfering with an investigation, I answer plainly. There is no lawful investigation because there is no lawful authority. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable seizures. My phone is private property. So is this driveway. I point to the seam. Boundary is here. The retired military neighbor echoes me for the live stream, and the line becomes a chant whispered into microphones. The organizer smirks and threatens to put me on HOA trespass for obstructing community safety. Someone laughs. Someone swears. Someone asks chat to screenshot his face. He tries to talk over all of it with a story about partnerships and cross-deputization. I ask the only question that matters. Name the commissioning agency and the supervisor who signed your papers. He cites a first name and a building. Like a roomer holding a clipboard, he steps closer. Last chance. Hand over the phone. The men spread, elbows out, turning sidewalks into funnels. I feel the scene creak toward a version nobody wants. Calm is still leverage, but leverage needs fulcrum. The fulcrum is proof that doesn't shout. The air tastes metallic, like rain that refuses to fall. I shake my head once. You will not seize my property. You do not have a warrant. You are not officers. My neighbors aren't cheering. They're recording, hearts thudding in their hands. The organizer opens his mouth for another speech. I am finished with speeches. There is a moment when a boundary becomes a mirror. I let them see themselves in it, then reach toward the wallet that rewrites posture into process. Enough questions. Time for the receipt that speaks for itself. I open the wallet like a lock recognizing its key. The leather folds back to a federal credential case, foil catching the porch light. Federal Bureau of Investigation, I say. Special agent. The organizer tries to grin, but his mouth forgets. The captain's eyes shift to the neighbors' phones, and then to the patches on his own chest, as if they might rearrange into legitimacy. This is simple, I continue. 18 U.S.C. Section 912, impersonating an officer. It covers pretending to be a U.S. officer and acting as such to obtain compliance. You issued commands, threatened detention, and attempted seizure under a false claim of authority. I point once at the circle closing in on my driveway. That's conduct, not costume. And this, I add, is 18 U.S.C. Section 142, deprivation of rights under color of law. Using pretended authority to restrict liberty or property, detaining, seizing. Threatening retaliation exposes you to federal scrutiny. Color of law doesn't mean color of polo. The organizer starts a sentence with partnership, but I don't lend him space. I angle slightly so the nearest camera can see the credential. You are on video attempting unlawful restraint, under color of HOA rules, I say. Each word measured. You are also on video ordering the seizure of private property without a warrant or probable cause. The distinction between covenants and criminal code has been explained already. I tap my phone and bring up the doorbell archive. Thumbnails line the screen like passport stamps. One tap and the audio plays. Every command, every threat, every reach for my device or attempt to funnel me off my property. The retired military neighbor calls out timestamps. A teenager whispers, "Clip that." One man breaks. He pivots and bolts toward the newest SUV, head down. Hands open as if innocence weighs less than speed. The others freeze as if the pavement turned to glass. I don't raise my voice. I don't need to. Here is what happens next, I say, still calm. You will remain where you are. You will not touch any resident, any phone, or any doorbell camera. You will provide legal identification, including full name and the entity that employs you. You will state whether any law enforcement agency commissioned you. If not, you will leave my property and wait on the public street for responding officers. The organizer gropes for momentum and finds only his reflection in a dozen lenses. You're making a mistake, he says. No, I answer. I'm documenting yours. The evidence is complete, commands recorded, threats preserved, boundaries marked, and every refusal to name jurisdiction fixed in time. For whoever reviews this moment later with clarity. Far down the block, the sound we expected finally arrives, the layered howl of real sirens. Not a suggestion, but a signal. Faces turn toward the intersection. I keep my eyes on the men in polos and let the sirens announce the next scene. The road is coming to meet them, and this time it knows its name. Marked cruisers nose into the cul-de-sac, light bars washing the quiet street in disciplined color. Uniformed officers step out with the practiced economy of people who have done this before. They split the space cleanly, residents to the sidewalk, men in polos to the curb. Me on my driveway with a simple nod of acknowledgement. A sergeant asks to see my credentials. I present the wallet. He reads, calls the 24/7 federal duty desk, and confirms the credential while another officer cross-checks the ORI. The sergeant's posture doesn't change. Only the air does. Procedure replaces speculation the way daylight replaces rumor. The supposed HOA police are separated. Patches, batons, and imitation shields are collected and bagged. A private radio is silenced and set beside a clipboard that suddenly looks very small. Each man is told to keep his hands visible, provide legal identification, and wait for statements. The one who ran is retrieved to houses down by an officer who doesn't raise his voice. An officer turns toward the nearest phone and speaks as if addressing his own report. Homeowners associations, he says, manage civil covenants fees, upkeep, shared spaces. They cannot detain, search, seize, or arrest. That is criminal authority reserved for commission law enforcement. Impersonation, he adds, is a felony because it forces compliance under false color. People obey badges. The law protects that trust. He explains that real officers carry agency, policy, dispatch records, and case numbers that can be verified in minutes. If someone cannot provide those, call the non-emergency line and document everything. A neighbor thanks him aloud, and the block exhales through a dozen microphones. I give the sergeant a short list, names as spoken, patch details, the organizer's claims, and the timestamps when detention was threatened and seizure ordered. I send the doorbell archive, the body cam clips, and a copy of my statement to the case email he provides. I request the incident number, the reports tied to it, and confirmation of any arrest made tonight or scheduled pending interviews. The sergeant nods once. He tells the men in polos that they are being warned for immediate arrest if they attempt to leave, tamper with evidence, or contact witnesses. Transport units idle at the corner. A tow truck rolls past slowly, sees the uniforms, and keeps going. Neighbors settle back onto their lawns, voices soft, phones still recording, but less tightly held. The captain stares at his shoes as if the letters on his patch have started to itch. I thank the officers for a clean scene and restate the line that matters. Covenants are contracts. Law is law. The paperwork will say the same. And so noted. Within a week, the organizer posts a paragraph, beginning with effective immediately. He resigns from the HOA board and thanks the community for its robust feedback, a phrase that disguises subpoenas like throw pillows. The statement is shared in the neighborhood app with muted confetti, then screenshotted and forwarded to people who swore this kind of thing would never happen here. Investigations stack. Several participants face questions on impersonation, false imprisonment, and menacing. Civil exposure grows roots, harassment, intrusion upon seclusion, intentional infliction of distress. Their novelty shields look worse in daylight, and worse still beside the words sworn and affirmed. Vendors who supply patches receive polite, pointed calls. The clubhouse's corkboard, once crowded with bake sale flyers, now holds a notice about records retention. The HOA issues a public statement, plain font, no clip art. It clarifies they possess no police powers and have updated bylaws and vendor policies to forbid pseudo-security uniforms, imitation badges, and language that implies criminal authority. It apologizes for confusion and for the fear some residents felt. It promises annual training on de-escalation, legal limits, and when to call the actual police instead of cosplay. A forum follows in the school gym. Folding chairs, lukewarm coffee. A deputy explains the difference between covenants and criminal code. A civil attorney explains how contracts are enforced, and how quickly compliance turns to coercion when pretend authority throws weight around. A teenager from the livestream asks if filming was helpful. Every hand says yes. The retired military neighbor talks about posture, breath, and how calm keeps options open. Life resumes, which is its own quiet verdict. Dogs still tug leashes at dawn. Sprinklers keep time. Children chalk galaxies onto sidewalks that barely remember what happened. I replace a porch bulb and set the trash out on the right night. With the doorbell camera pointed at the street, I scroll through clips, packages delivered. A cat pretending to own the block, a jogger waving at her reflection. Receipts outlive theater. So, do boundaries spoken aloud? I file the incident number with the others, not as a trophy, but as a map of lines held. I don't tell the story again unless someone needs the lesson. The lesson is practical, not dramatic. Ask for jurisdiction, ask for the case number. Stay on your line, keep the record running, and let the right authority carry the weight. Real authority is accountability. Titles, polos, and patches are costumes, receipts decide. When power is real, it names its agency, cites policy, and accepts review. When power is fake, it gets louder. Your calm is leverage, and documentation is armor. Practical takeaways, boiled clean, verified credentials, ask for agency badge, and a case or incident number you can confirm. Know your property lines and stand on them. Record interactions from the first word. Back up the files. Call the non-emergency line and validate jurisdiction before you comply. If answers arrive, follow lawful instructions. If answers vanish, you're dealing with theater, not law. Keep language plain. Ask short questions. Repeat key points so the record is clear. What is your agency? What is the case number? Who is your supervisor? Do not surrender your phone without a warrant. Do not step into traps framed as just over here. Come questions protect you, your neighbors, and even honest officers who will inherit the scene. Receipts collapse pretend authority. Share them, not to humiliate, but to correct. Comment with the time you saw fake power exposed. And share this so neighbors know the line between HOA rules and real law. Facts travel, fear retreats.